Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and check this out, guys. This is a recent video that just came out of a video showing Coast Guards jumping on a drug submarine in the middle of the Pacific. So let's load up this video first. Check this out. Okay, so you could see the submarine in the center. They're pointing at the submarine. They're pulling up on the submarine. Makes you wonder why this guy didn't just go underwater. I don't know how any of that works. So here we go. They're yelling at it and pointing their finger. That'll do it. Stop right now. All right. This is where it gets kind of interesting here. Because as they get closer here, now you see the guys on the other side coming up on it. Watch this. This guy just jumps onto the submarine and bangs on the hatch. Oh my god. And you see they finally get it open, and the guy is like, okay, all right. Freaking crazy people. Anyway, I had to show you guys that clip because first I wanted to just talk about this a bit. It sounds pretty cool. It's like, wow, these guys risk their lives to jump on a boat to steal this guy's drugs. Well, I'm sorry. Not steal it. Confiscate it for the government, because I'm sure they won't do anything. I'm sure they'll just burn it and they won't run it to any cartels or anything. I just wanted to talk about this. I mean, because I feel like it, in a lot of ways, is quite similar to this news here. Florida man thought he was stealing opioids, but instead got laxatives, police say. Of course, it's a Florida man. Hilarious. But do you guys get my point here? Here's a U.S. officer pulled random people over and planted meth inside their cars, causing them to lose their freedom, their children, their marriages. And this is a far less funny, far more infuriating story. And my point, and I'm going to get into this story more in a moment, but my point is that what changes from an individual with lots of ammunition stealing someone's stuff and throwing them in a cage and confiscating their stuff when they got a shiny badge on or when they have plain clothes on? I don't understand where you draw that level. People will say, well, it's government. The government knows what's best. They're just stopping a bad guy, and that person might run these drugs onto the street and innocent people will get it. Well, what about like the United States government running, I don't know, heroin from Afghanistan into the United States? What about that? Well, what about when key figures in the CIA crack cocaine scandal begin to come forward regarding the Contra controversy from many years ago that I'm sure is still going on, because they like to create problems and come in as a faulty solution. You could see these small articles here. They're old and outdated because they are old-fashioned, internet articles. This one, original air date May 17th, 1988, and it's just a transcript. But it's from Frontline, talking about guns, drugs, and the CIA. Now, going back here. Now, what if I took meth and put it into someone else's car? Would I get a paid vacation? Would I get, a promotion? Would I get a slap on the wrist? Or would I be thrown in a cage like anyone else would if they they're putting meth in people's cars and causing them to lose their children? Now, just going back to this Coast Guard video, it's like, cool. These guys are crazy. They're jumping into the water and they're seizing drugs out of this submarine, and it's crazy, and they're our heroes, and it's amazing, and we should look up to them. But they are doing the bidding of a government that runs more guns, runs more drugs, creates more criminal activity than anything else. Just think of the fact that while they were running guns to cartels in Latin and Central America, they were propping up the drug war over here. They were banning environmental alternatives while propping up big oil, which later comes in where they ban straws and they carbon taxes in Canada, etc. But then they're running all these guns to these cartels, propping them up. They make billions of dollars. They work with the CIA, and then they come in as a savior to stop them, all while being involved in Operation Condor, killing 400,000 people, displacing hundreds of thousands of more people, running heroin in from Afghanistan, from poppy fields. Well, they're just guarding poppy fields out there, killing anyone that asks any questions. And then with the war on drugs and imprisoning all these people, mostly impoverished, destroying lives. Michael Edwards, our friend Kingsley Edwards, his father, has been in jail for 26 years for a tablespoon of cocaine or something like that. 26 years, and was put in jail for 60 years in total. There's a petition at change.org to free Michael Edwards, by the way. But I mean, just think about that. So who is a real criminal here? Who is a real bad guy? And why does it change suddenly when they work for the government, the biggest organized crime racket in the world that has almost no competition because they are a monopoly on force? I can't not bring this article up in the mix. U.S. Customs just seized a ship owned by J.P. Morgan after authorities found $1 billion worth of drugs on it. And, of course, they're talking about it's one of their asset ships, asset management ships. As it says, federal prosecutors in Philadelphia have seized a container ship operated by Mediterranean Shipping Co. and owned by J.P. Morgan Assets Management. That came weeks after authorities found more than $1 billion worth of cocaine on the vessel in what was one of the largest drug busts in American history. At least half a dozen crew members have been arrested, according to Homeland Security investigations, and the investigation is ongoing. I wonder who's getting paid off here. Oh, they're just going to throw these young guys under the bus that are on board of the ship. Like, they were responsible for smuggling the $1 billion worth of drugs. And I'm sure J.P. Morgan had nothing to do with it at all. I'm sure they aren't, smuggling in drugs and making a bunch of money off of it because, well, I mean, look, they're technically bankrupt if you look at their balance sheet, their cash to deposit ratio, but that's a whole other story, a whole other subject. My point is, I mean, this was on, I believe, June 17th, border agents found 39,525 pounds of cocaine stashed in several containers. And then the street value of the drug was estimated at about $1.3 billion, making it the largest cocaine seizure by the agency. Okay, so I can't help but notice how hypocritical this is, because first of all, I think that the banks would definitely be involved in this kind of stuff. Second, the people that are smuggling this stuff out of desperation, due to poverty, inflation, all that kind of stuff, you can bring it all the way to the top, but on top of that, it's a market, and there's demand for it, and they're providing for the demand. Alcohol, in my opinion, is worse than cocaine to a great extent. It poisons people more than cocaine does. It's worse for your body, technically speaking. I'm not encouraging people to use cocaine. I'm just saying, like, that much is obvious if you actually look at the science of it. But I feel like people are trying to do things for their families, provide for their families as it gets harder and harder to do so. Employment rates are going down despite the official employment numbers when you look at the actual labor force participation rate, where they hide the employment numbers. The dollar is going into a bear market. People are impoverished. Taxes are high. Regulations are high. It just keeps going up and up and up, causing more and more problems. There's no real competition in the markets anymore because these massive monopolies are propped up by the state via these regulations and taxes, etc., and these laws that go in, legislation that goes in, etc. And then this the prohibition on top of that, creating a black market and creating an opportunity for a lot of these people that are desperate to make money to provide food for their family, and then at the same time, the government being involved in running most of the guns, running most of the drugs, and in many cases, as we see with this cop here, and this isn't a secluded case, this happens a lot, you have a U.S. officer just pulling people over and planting drugs on them, planting meth. And people have lost their children because of this. People have lost their family members because of this. And marriages were destroyed, and they'll never recover. I mean, there's video of it. I encourage you to look up the video of it. This is the face of the piece of trash that is involved in this case. But imagine how many other cases there are just like that we don't know about. I've seen many videos of cops talking about planting cocaine on people alone. This is meth. This is shot from when Deputy Zachary Wester pulled over Teresa Odom, whom he arrested for possession of meth after police say he planted the drugs. And you could see in the video him planting the drugs. And now they're reviewing all these because apparently there's evidence that he did it a lot. And who's to say all these other cops, not all of them, but a lot of them aren't doing the exact same thing, and all these people go into jail. And even if they did have meth on them, is a way to handle it by ruining people's lives and throwing them in a cage owned by the state that runs more guns and drugs, like I said, than anyone else, any other entity, any other person. It's crazy. These people are criminals. They are disgusting human beings. They're psychotic. You have to be psychotic to want to be in that position of power. And they are taking advantage of the most vulnerable people. So I want people to think of that when they see videos like, oh, look at this hero banging on the hatch, risking his life. I'm sure he's just misled. I'm not saying that this guy is a bad person, obviously, but misled, working for the government to stop the, people trying to get drugs. Look how desperate. To have a submarine, you have to be pretty desperate. And who knows? What if it turns out later? Because remember, there's all those stories about CIA agents posing as Al-Qaeda and CIA agents, FBI agents posing as Al-Qaeda, accidentally shooting at each other and then realizing they're shooting at other government agents. What if it turns out they just busted government funneling of drugs? It wouldn't surprise me at all. That's kind of stuff, the kind of shenanigans that these people are up to. So I just really wanted to break down some of this stuff for you guys to talk about it, because I've been seeing these stories going around lately a lot, and it's like, oh, they got all these drugs from these people. And you ever see those photos of cops with like 5 grams of marijuana, and they're like taking pictures and posing for Facebook, and crime doesn't pay, kids. And it's like, you just stole 5 grams of weed off of like a 15-year-old. Who is the loser here? I don't know. I think you're getting paid by taxpayers basically on welfare to steal people's weed. I mean, I don't know. I saw a few people in high school stealing other kids' weed, but they were high school kids and they're stoners. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. But at the same time, I guess it kind of does. It's the politics of fear that keeps people subservient and dependent, and the politics of don't do as government does, do as government says. Because government kills more people than any other entity. Government steals from people more than any other entity. Government pollutes more than any other entity. Government kidnaps more than any other entity. Government creates problems and come in as a solution. They, for example, sank the Lusitania, go into World War I. They helped prop up Hitler against the communists. Then they prop up the USSR against Hitler and give them arms and money and they ally with them. And then they arm and fund the Al-Qaeda to go, Mujahideen, to go against the USSR. And then they, they arm and fund Ho Chi Minh for the National Communists in Vietnam, which leads to the Vietnam War, where they themselves sank a ship in the Gulf of Tonkin, leading to the war, dropping chemical bombs on children, and then, arming and funding Iraq, the Ba'athist Party against Iran, who they stage a coup against all these years earlier and cause all these conflicts, and arm the Taliban and all that kind of stuff, and ISIS and Muslim Brotherhood, and it just keeps going. And then people wonder why people are not trusting the government anymore. People wonder why they're not trusting police anymore. People wonder why people are opposed to these attempts to whittle away more and more freedoms of the individual, which, by the way, we all need to get better at defending. It's an epidemic of statism. It's an epidemic of a criminal cartel that we call government, that the only difference between them and a normal cartel or a mob or whatever, a racket, is that they have a monopoly on force that they enforce by the rule of a gun, by the collective, where they have cheerleaders waving red or blue flags, etc. That's the difference. So anyway, I could go on for hours about this. There's a lot more I could talk about, but for now, I'm just going to leave it at that. Make sure to subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff. Comment below. Our videos are getting destroyed by algorithm here on YouTube, and we need you guys more than ever. Our subscriber-only content. We just posted our JFK documentary that was banned from YouTube on our Subscribestar for subscribers only at the $4.99 US a month and up tier. Anyway, check that out. Check our Bitcoin out after this. And anyway, we'll be back at you with much more. It's hot in Las Vegas. Very, very hot, hovering around 110 degrees. So it's harder to do these videos on the fly without going a little brain dead by the end of the video. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
Like what you see here at WAM, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, we can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we're so heavily demonetized and censored and shadow banned. It's getting really bad, folks. If everyone just gave $1 single a month to, say, Patreon or our Subscribestar, where we do subscriber-only content, we could really get out of this rut that we are currently in as YouTube tries to stifle independent media and prop up the mainstream media. This is really important. This is one of the most important times in independent media history for us to say it's now or never. Let's keep moving forward and let's be that change that we wish to see in the world. Of course, there's also our Bitcoin address below as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And of course, we got events coming up. So make sure to check us out at anarchovegas.com. Anarchovegas.com. Use promo code WAM, that's WAM, for a 10% discount on your tickets. It's on July 19th, 20th, and 21st in, of course, Las Vegas, Nevada. That's anarchovegas.com. Make sure to check us out there and find us on websites like BitTube and Minds, and just try to support independent media, if not myself, any of the other big independent medias out there, to help us continuously bring our message to you free of charge so that we can really change the guard as we move forward into a dramatically polarized, crazy future. Let's try to make it as sustainable as possible. It comes down to you guys. You are the change you wish to see. You guys will help us get through these tough times. So anyway, check out all those links. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.
Thank you.